Wednesday, March 15th, 2023. Still in Ubud, Bali, Indonesia, in this magical jungle paradise. What have we done recently, Shamar?
Oh, we had some new experiences for sure because we finally went on a tour.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we got to see some sights. It's taken us, I think, 3 weeks to settle in and finally feel like we want to leave the little oasis that we're staying out and venture into the wider land and see what's out there. Yeah.
Usually it takes about 1 month of me traveling before I can sleep. For some weird reason, it takes 1 month before I can fully adapt to the new climate and everything. I don't know why that is, but I think this time it took 3 weeks instead of 1 month. And I've been sleeping okay, but for some reason, the thick, wet, hot weather plus the sun has just been frying me in the middle day when I'm trying to do cartoons and landscapes and such. And I just kind of wanted to absorb the beauty of our little hotel complex with the pool and the birds and the fruit trees.
Palm trees and the flowers. It's just so beautiful, yeah.
But finally we got out of actual Ubud. Like we've wandered around Ubud itself, but outside of Ubud. Ooh. Yeah, there's lots. Basically, what you're supposed to do when you go to Bali is get a scooter. And I had a bad omen when I was on Jeju-do in Korea about not getting on a scooter because I brought it up to our Qigong teacher about how maybe I should practice driving a scooter on Jeju-do. And the moment I said that, someone on a scooter in front of me got hit by a car. And he was okay, but the timing was so weird. I was like, you know what? This just doesn't seem like a good idea, but maybe. And we're here and the traffic is so bad. I'm just like, no, I'm not doing that. But all their temples and interesting sites are scattered all over the island. So it's kind of hard to see them unless you go there personally on your own scooter and make time to plan out what you're going to see and how to see it. But we finally were like, you know what? The only way we're going to see much without a scooter is to just pay a guy to drive us to these places. And usually when you do that, they've got a set tour. And to their credit, you can kind of mix and match some of them, but some of the locations. But we went to a few locations, and some were more interesting than others. Let's see. We went to a rice terrace. We went to a water temple, a coffee plantation, a wonderful view of a mountain, of an active volcano and a lake. We went to an elephant cave and another funeral kind of holy temple place with giant sculptures carved into the sides of a cliff. So yeah, it was pretty interesting. Which one did you like the most, Shamar?
I liked them for different reasons, so it's hard to pick. I really liked the view of the volcano, the mounts. I think it's Mount Batur. And the driver took us there and he had this really beautiful coffee shop place in mind where we could sit down and I had some carrot cake and Keith had a little...
Overpriced iced Americano.
Yeah, and like a pastry. But the view was just absolutely beautiful. And in the distance, we could see the volcano and then we could see the area where apparently it erupted in... I think it was 1968. And so we could see this whole area where there's a lava flow. And even to this day, it's still black in that area. There's hardly any trees growing there. It's just this black.
There's one clump.
One clump of
like
trees.
A little hill that either got missed or the trees don't even look that old on that clump in the middle of the lava field. I think maybe they didn't get flattened with lava, but maybe they caught on fire. But the soil was preserved, so they kind of regrew. but the rest of the lava field was just charred black nothingness.
Yeah. I think honestly, I liked each place we went for certain reasons, and I also didn't like the places for certain other reasons. So if we start with just kind of the order of the tour, the first place we went was very famous rice terraces in Ubud, but they're actually like Instagrammable famous, like that kind of famous.
Oh, and all the other tourists were making sure that they were getting their Instagram photos and videos with all these big stupid swings. And let's see, what was it? Tegalalang.
Okay, we need to look up the
Tegalalang rice terrace.
Yeah, we need to look up how to say it. But I've seen other rice terraces online, and there are others in Bali that are definitely way more beautiful. But this one was perfect for people who want to get those iconic photos with the swing and the dress and all of this. And so Keith and I were kind of just not very impressed.
I thought it sucked. It sucked, dude. I mean, like, they had a bunch of scattered tourist, like, cutesy statues that wasn't part of the landscape. And they had like I love Bali signs, like, scattered on the sides of rice terraces, and little bridges and tourist infrastructure that looked out of place.
It was almost like a rice terrace park, you know, like a mini golf course or something, but not mini golf, but it had that kind of like character to it, or lack of character.
Yeah, and they had little places where you pay money to go on a swing, or pay money to go up a little drawbridge sort of area, like plank to a little tower where you can take a picture or buy overpriced water. And I don't know, I kept trying to find a place to take a picture, and there was just kind of junky tourist shit like scattered around the view. And there were a few pictures that were okay, but
yeah, you know, but in the end we made the most of it, and we got there I think maybe like 9 a.m, so it was a beautiful time of day, and we ended up doing a mini trek, so we probably spent 45 minutes wandering around the grounds.
I liked the roosters wandering around.
Yeah, there were some like rice terrace roosters. And then at one point I turned my head and there was this spring, or like this little fall, like this water coming out of this little faucet. And there's like this naked dude over there. I think he's just a local, but I saw his butt. I was like, what? What is this about?
I walked by and he was kind of like turned and was just like staring at me later as he got like his towel on. And this wasn't like hidden at all.
No, and he's kind of looking at us like, what are we doing there? And I'm thinking like, well, what are you doing here, knowing that like there's tourists here all over the place? Like, of course we're going to wander upon this area. It wasn't very hidden. So that was kind of, you know, odd.
I say let the man bathe.
Yeah, but you know, hey, it's all good. So we took we got, you know, some videos and pictures and wandered around, and there were some, you know, beautiful flowers and meh. Okay. It's still beautiful because it's in Bali, but we just know that there's other places that are way more beautiful. So, yeah. So anyways, moving on. So after that, we then went to
Tirta Empul.
Yes, the Pura Tirta Empul, which is the holy spring. It's like a water temple, and it's this is the one you see all the time. And well, how would you describe it?
Well, we got there, and our tour guide, the guy who drove us everywhere, he's like, look, you can go there and I'll show you how we do it. And then you will be Balinese at that point. I'm like, okay, cool. I got that going for me. And so he took us past all these monuments. We had to pay a little fee to get in. And they had us, you have to wear a sarong, like a fabric around your waist. And he showed us how to fold it. It's different for men and for women. And it's a bunch of Western tourists all getting their sarongs and everything. And all of a sudden there was yelling off in the distance. Like the Balinese people were like, hey, whoa, what are you doing? Whoa. And I looked off in the distance, and there was some woman in her 20s, like a flower child sort of person with little, what are they? Little not beads, like little crystal things that you attach to your forehead.
Like horns, like crystal horns?
No, they weren't horns. Like she bedazzled her forehead in the shape of an upside down triangle.
Okay.
And it was very hippie, but she was wearing like a string bikini and was like about to walk into this holy temple in a string bikini with no sarong.
Yeah, and the thing is, they tell you before you go to one of these temples, they say like, make sure you dress appropriately. Wear something that covers your shoulders, right? Cover your knees. You're gonna have to wear a sarong. Dress appropriately.
Yeah,
And
she wanted her
she was
sexy Instagram bikini photo in a holy Balinese Hindu water temple, and all of her friends they're kind of muttering in Russian, like what's going on? Oh, yeah, sarong for you. And she looked kind of sheepish, but still smiling, and kind of submitted to the sarong that they made her wear. And so we go in, and our guide was like, okay, you go in here, here's people praying, you offer, if this were part of a ceremony, you offer like a little offering to the deity here with incense and all that. You pray. And he explains that he does this from time to, I think, once every 6 years, he said.
Yes.
For a specific ceremony.
There's a more specific ceremony, yeah.
Yeah. But he said, okay, you go to the locker room and you can change out of this sarong, which you wear around the temple grounds, into this big green sarong that you wear into the water. And so we did that and came out, and there's a big pool with all of these old stone fountain heads blowing out water. And he was like, okay, the first one you skip, because you only do that if someone's died. And you do all of these, and then these other two you skip, because that's also for if someone dies. But these, you have to wash your eyes 3 times under the fountain of each fountain, and there's like 12 of them in a row or something like that?
I think total there's maybe like up to 30, but
Okay.
I don't think we did all of those.
Yeah, so we go in this waist-deep pool with round pebbles, like river stones on the bottom, and you wash your eye. You do a little Y with your hands, and you wash your eyes 3 times, and then your hair 3 times with the water, and then you dunk your head under the water spout, and then you move on.
And for
to the next
each spout, though, while you're doing this process, you're thinking of some sort of prayer or something that you're,
The point is, it's a purification.
It's a purification.
ceremony.
So, you're calling forth inspiration or purification, some sort of prayer, that sort of thing. And actually, I'll say, there was a part of me when I saw all the tourists there in the pool, there was a part of me that was like, you know what, maybe I don't really need to do this. Like, you know what, never mind. I'll just take some pictures. I'll walk around. But then in the end, we changed, we got in the water, and going through it actually was pretty magical. Like, I definitely, once I was in the water and going through the process and splashing the water on my face and doing this whole thing and thinking of the prayers, and we go through it one by one by one. It was a really beautiful experience, even with all the tourists there.
I liked it. I did. The tourists were pretty much well behaved.
Yeah.
And there were families there, and I liked that it was participatory and sensory. Like my whole body could feel
like
it,
we were
so
in
it would be more deeply ingrained in my memory. You know, and there was a process to it that was unique to the place and culture, and I care more about experiences than I do about pictures. So
it was very different than just walking around looking at it. It was very different getting into the cold water and then actually being cold for a good 30 minutes while we went through the process. I was kind of shivering. Yeah. It was cold. And there were little fish in the water nibbling at our feet and our toes. Yeah. And then like in the distance, so you have these beautiful rock formations and stone carvings that are all around you, and the water's coming out of the fountains. And then behind it are, of course, it's like the beautiful Balinese landscape. So there's palm trees and green jungle. I mean, it's just like so absolutely gorgeous.
Towers from other parts of the complex. So there's towers around you in this pool and trees within the temple. And then there's hillsides around the temple.
Yeah.
And this temple complex is over 1,000 years old.
So people have been doing these rituals for hundreds of years, 1,000 years.
Very cool. Some people brought, I think they were locals. Locals were doing the ceremony too, not just tourists. And they brought plastic jugs to fill up from the same water that we were all dunking our heads under. Mm-hmm. So they're like, yeah, we want our holy water to take home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There are other parts of the temple. I was asking, how often do they change the thatched roofs on some of the towers? And our guide was like, every several years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not once a year. It's like maybe 6 years or something. I think is what he said.
I think 6 years.
6 years, and he said, yeah, there's a whole ceremony for that. But he was like, yeah, in Bali, there's a ceremony for everything. So
yeah, true.
There's like a religious ceremony to sanctify every new thing. He was saying later that there's a ceremony if you get a new scooter, and a different one for if you have a car, like a new car. And ceremonies for babies, ceremonies for weddings, ceremony for buying things, ceremony for
everything,
for food,
and particular ceremonies. It's like the car ceremony is different.
It's not the same ceremony.
No.
Yeah, it's unique to each place. But in this complex, we walked around, and there was another place where he was like, this water is always clean. And it looked very clean. And it was a spring, and it was bubbling up out of the sandy ground in this big pool in the temple with lots of green aquatic plant life and fish running around. And he said, if you see the big fish, it's good luck because that's our God. I was like, your God's a big fish? I think he meant like that's like one of the gods in the temple. And boy, I looked for that fish for a long time and I could not find the big fish. I saw small and medium fish, but no big fish.
Not the big fish.
I don't think I've got bad luck. I just don't get the extra bonus good luck. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that was.
Well, let me just make one other kind of comment.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of things you notice when you're there, right? It's like you see the beautiful pictures in the magazines or YouTube or Instagram, and then you go there and you have a much more varied experience. For example, so this is a holy site. It's a holy place. People are going there. They're giving prayers, right? Going through this whole process. But yet, like Keith said, on the entrance, there's this girl walking around in her bikini, completely out of place. And then when you go into the locker room area to change your clothes, it's actually the men and women are in the same locker room originally, where the lockers are, and then you put your stuff away and you get your change of clothes, and then you go into these separate men and women changing areas. But it's kind of like it's a big hubbub of people in the back, so it gets all confusing. So like there were these girls back there in like the co-ed area, like basically taking off most of their clothes. They're running around their thong bikinis, and then like over in the ticket stand, there's the guys that are selling tickets, and they're like, poking their buddy and like, hey, and they're like looking at the girls, through the window. And it's just like, it was just so strange to me and kind of funny. Yeah, all this mixture of spirituality and then just real humans. And,
I was kind of rolling my eyes.
It's kind of.
A lot of the tourists, I was like, guys, this is supposed to be like a solemn kind of spiritual religious thing. And it's their space, man.
Yeah, but it seemed like these people just rolled in from the beach and they were like
pictures for Instagram,
running around in their swimsuits all day, not realizing how like holy this place was supposed to be.
A lot of the tourists really treat this place like it's like, I don't know, Hawaii or like a tropical island where you can run around in a bikini on the beach. And this is a very religious society. It's not very restrictive, but you don't see the locals walking around in bikinis.
No, they're covered up. Their shoulders are covered up.
They drink alcohol and listen to rock and roll, and they laugh and make jokes, and they don't really have any dietary restrictions or anything like that. But like they're not
running around in little tank tops and short shorts,
not
like
flaunting
all
their bodies,
like the international people, or people coming in from other countries.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that was our experience there, which was very memorable.
And how do you pronounce the name?
I think it's Pura Tirtha Impul.
Pura Tirtha Impul.
Yeah.
Okay.
Holy Spring Temple.
Okay.
And
next, I think we went to.
Then we went to the Mount Batur, or the the city or the town was named Kintamani, and it was looking at Mount Batur in the distance.
Yes, this little town overlooking with a great view of both the volcano and the lake, which is it's like a, what do you call it? A caldera?
Yeah, I think so.
Lake? Yeah, it's a lake formed out of like a volcanic crater. And man, paying to park the place and to go in there, we had to run the gauntlet with all these people shoving trinkets in our faces, which it's weird. Like on this tour, it wasn't like they would come up to us because they noticed we're tourists. It's like they had a whole system down. The moment we parked our car, we had to like go through 2 rows of people, like all, pushing their wares on us. And,
And it's the same wares over and over.
Same wares. So I'm just like, man, no. And I got to admit, I understand it, but I understand where they're coming from, but it is quite draining. And also, they're not as pushy as other places I've been to.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in India, them just like shouting and shouting. In China, they wouldn't like be as loud and vicious as I remember, but they wouldn't let you go as easily as
it's more subdued here. It's still annoying, but you understand they're all trying to make a living, and that's how they make their living, selling to the tourists. They're trying to sell sarongs and purses and little artworks that they make.
So I was reading about how one interesting factoid about the volcanic lake that we were looking at is on the other side of it, there's a village where it's the only place in Bali where they don't cremate their dead. And that's because they believe that would anger the volcanic god, and it could trigger volcanic eruptions if they were to use more fire next to the volcano. So they leave their bodies out to decay naturally. And they've got and if they're married, they don't bury them. They let nature take its course and let them decay out in the open in like bamboo cages. And if they're not married, or if they drown in the lake, they bury them underground. But either way, they don't use fire. And there's, I guess, what they call a magic tree. One of the villages has this magic tree, which, according to a journalist who went there, he's like, yeah, it's true. The bodies that are around this tree don't smell, whereas all the other bodies that were decomposing in these other villages in the same complex, they stank like dead bodies. Yeah. You could smell them strongly far away, but the ones that are decomposing around this magic tree don't smell. So
very strange.
It's very interesting.
Eerie.
Yeah, eerie. But that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to see that, but we were high up.
Yeah, we weren't down by the lake. We were like up on a hill overlooking all of this area.
Yeah, maybe we'll get around to scoping out some dead bodies later.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. So we did this one. Then where do we go next?
We went to a coffee plantation.
And it wasn't just any sort of coffee, no.
Oh, no, they gave us a bunch of free coffee, hoping that we'd buy some stuff.
There was vanilla coffee, coconut coffee, chocolate coffee, and all sorts of teas. There must have been about 10 to 15 different samples that we tried.
Yeah. And then there's the civet poop tea.
Yeah, so the big
which you had to pay extra for because this is a luxury.
Or coffee, yeah. So the special coffee was the poop coffee.
It's called Kopi Luwak in Indonesian. And what it is, and they had a cage for their little civet, their little animal that eats ripe coffee berries. And so they feed ripe coffee berries to Asian palm civets. These are like jungle tree weasels, and they're native to Southeast Asia. And then when they poop out the coffee berries, they're fermented from their digestion. And then the poop comes out like, it looks like a payday bar, all clumped together. Then they wash them off and roast them and crush them and make a luxury coffee called Kopi Luwak. And they said, do you want to try some? You have to pay extra for this luxury poop coffee.
So?
And I said, of course. How much? And they said, okay, 50,000 rupiah, which is like $3.
Yeah.
And so I tried a cup of this stuff. And there's a slight must to it. And I guess these Asian palm civets have like stink glands near their butt, which they spray when they're in danger, kind of like a skunk. And maybe that has something to do with the must.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I tried it, and I was like, this is just like regular coffee with a slight musk, which isn't that great. So probably I'll never have this again.
Yeah, I tried a sip of yours, and I really couldn't tell anything too different. There was nothing that really stood out to me so different. But I didn't drink enough to actually feel the effect of it, so I don't know. Did you feel like this coffee was stronger than most after you drank it?
No, it was like normal coffee, but with a slight musk, like a musty musk. And I don't know. I read about how a lot of wild Asian palm civets are being hunted and put into cages where they're force-fed this coffee berries to make this luxury coffee, and it's messing up their environment. And it's kind of cruel because a lot of them live in crates. I mean, at this coffee plantation, there's one cage, which looked pretty spacious, but the civet wasn't out today, according to the people there. And I don't. This whole poo coffee thing seems unnecessarily cruel for not
the animals.
For not a lot of benefit. I mean, I feel like the cruelty is the point. Like, people want to brag that they're drinking like animal poo luxury coffee.
I don't know.
Because the taste isn't that much different.
No, but do people really like order this across the world, like imported from Bali? Like it's a really special thing.
It's not unique to Bali. It's all Indonesia.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Well, but it's like special, and people order it around the world. Because I don't see any need to order this again.
No,
I mean,
that's
it wasn't anything that amazing.
Yeah, and so I asked the lady there. I was like, "Well, do you have snakes?" She's like, "Well, sometimes, yeah." I was like, "Are they dangerous?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, of course, like all snakes." I was like, "Do they only come out at night?" She's like, "No, day and night. There's snakes." Because they're all walking around in little flip-flops.
Yeah,
I was wondering,
in the jungle.
In the jungle, and I was like, okay, what's going into this plantation? Are people getting bit by snakes? Are the civets okay? And the little guy in the cage who's pooping this stuff out? Like, I don't know. I mean, I tried to get as much out of these people as possible. These people, I mean, our one guide who represented the small company that ran this micro plantation, which looked like a jungle, like a triple canopy jungle. It wasn't like a field of monocrop.
No, and I mean, the place that they sat us down to have this spread of tea and coffee, it was really beautiful. Again, just an epic view of jungle. Like, it's so beautiful.
And I thought that would be the worst stop on the tour.
It was actually kind of interesting.
But, like trying the different teas and asking the lady about it. And I was like, I like tea. I like coffee. It's kind of fun and sensory and participatory.
Yeah, I like participatory.
And then they gave us a bunch of like free chocolate to sample later.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I bought their luxury poo coffee, 1 cup. So they did not, feel like
they got some sort of fee from you.
They got something out of it by giving me all this free tea and coffee. So I don't feel like I was scamming them too much, but it was a pretty place.
It was interesting, though. I'm glad we went.
Yeah. It was okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Not as horrible as I thought it would be. I thought it would be like an ecological nightmare of like a denuded hillscape with rows of the same plant with lots of sun exposure and like agricultural runoff and mud and shit. But it was like a patch of jungle with big coffee plants. All right. So next, Gunung Kawi. Man, that was the place with all the steps.
Oh, yeah.
And we went all the way down all those steps to this little river valley. And deep down there weren't that many people, actually.
No.
And we had to wear a sarong to this because it was technically a temple. Mm-hmm. And I guess a king from hundreds of years ago got buried there with all of his wives. So it's like a funeral complex.
And there were basically like some statues carved into the rock, like the rock hillside.
They look like big pagodas or like towers that were carved into the hillside, like a really big relief. How tall would you say that is? Like 20, 30 feet?
At least maybe
really, 50 feet
really tall.
With a row of like 5 of them.
Yeah, and there was like a stream running through and a little waterfall. It was a really beautiful area to walk around. There were some rice paddies over to the side.
Mm-hmm. It was pretty.
Yeah. But so,
by then getting sweaty.
Yeah. And there was rain starting to move in, so we had the umbrella with us by this time, wondering if we were going to get a
before or
downpour.
after he took us to the restaurant.
That was after. I think we went to a restaurant before that.
Yeah, we went to an overpriced restaurant, which was a pretty cool gimmick. It was like an elevated hallway. You go up these stairs, and there's this wood hallway with a panoramic view.
Of the jungle, of course.
Of the jungle.
Which, again, is always beautiful.
Great view. And got our overpriced food. But it was actually surprisingly okay. We got more than a pile of rice.
Well, and the thing is, by this point, I don't know if we've mentioned this yet on a prior podcast, but there's so much rice being served here in Indonesia.
Plain rice.
Like plain rice. So Indonesian food, it's good, but it always comes with a big pile of rice. And the big pile of rice is more like the main part of the meal. And so then the like good little Indonesian food is on the side. So Keith and I are always hungry because we cannot eat all the rice. So we'll end up ordering like 2 plates and like putting the rice aside. So finally, this day when we had lunch, we didn't order Indonesian food. I ordered pasta. And Keith, what did you get? It was a pizza.
I got a chicken pizza.
A chicken pizza.
Barbecue chicken pizza. And I was like, I feel like such a schmuck tourist, like ordering something that's not local at all.
But we actually did feel somewhat satisfied after that
meal. I was like, whoa,
meal.
I feel kind of like my blood sugar isn't like spiking from all the carbs turning to sugar in my system. And like had a little weight to it. And I was like, this combined with the poo coffee, I feel kind of good, despite all the heat, like the wet heat and the sun.
Yeah, thank goodness we had a bit of a cloudy day. That helped. Yeah, so we did this, and then I think we had one more place we went to go.
The Elephant Cave.
Yes, the Elephant Cave.
That's a great image of the Elephant Cave. Go to this big complex. Again, you get out of the car, and there's all these people lined up to like wave trinkets in your face. And at the coffee plantation, it was children, like a bunch of, how old were they?
7-year-olds.
Like 7-year-olds waving stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's the first time I'd really seen children trying to sell stuff. I'm not used to seeing that here in Bali.
I got the sense it was like there was a family that lived there, and these are little kids hanging out.
They didn't look destitute or anything.
No, they were like playing, and then
School
like this
was out.
Yeah, this is like what they did for extra like money, or maybe even it's kind of fun to like play with the tourists.
Yeah, they were hanging out with their friends, and then as soon as we got out of the car or left the coffee plantation,
then they would just start dancing.
Like, jump up, and as soon as they saw us, and like shake stuff in our face. And we'd say like, no, ha 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 ha, no, and then they'd be like, whatever, okay.
And then they just start dancing.
They start doing little jigs and playing with each other and stuff, and I was like, yeah, cool, they're normal kids.
Yeah.
Our tour guide said that the school day is, let's see, it was from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
Yeah.
So 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. And this was at, I think, 3 in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they were out of school to sell trinkets to tourists. No. They were kind of well dressed and had shoes and such. Anyway, Elephant Cave. Go to this big complex, you go into a cave, and the opening to the cave is this big, freaky carved face.
And you basically walk into the mouth.
Eyes and teeth, and you walk into the mouth of this giant, freaky face.
Yeah.
And why is it called the elephant? There's shrines to like Ganesh inside.
Well, then maybe I guess that's why. I don't actually know the history of this one. I need to read about this one.
I don't think there's any elephants.
That's a good question.
If there were native elephants to Bali, like they were not here for a long time.
We have to
They
read
might
that.
have been brought here a long time ago, like to be used as work animals, but I don't think they're native.
Yeah.
So,
We'll have to
and
check
there
on that.
aren't any elephants now except at the zoo. And
Yeah.
those are imported from other countries. But anyway, in this cave, yeah, you go deep, deep, deep inside, and there's shrines with all these offerings of flowers and incense and food.
It smells very musty inside. It's
Very
kind of damp and wet in there.
dark. Yeah, it's cool. And there's, I guess, this ancient Buddhist shrine that we went to. You had to go down even more steps deeper into this jungle ravine. There's this old man there. He's like, come, come, come. Okay, yeah, sure. He's like, Buddha, Buddha. I was like, yeah, that's the Buddhist shrine up on this little platform. Not that big of a Buddhist shrine. He's like, there were two, but thief, now one. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
He's like, follow me.
He's like, follow me. Elephant, broken. Elephant cave, broken. Long time ago, elephant broken.
He was very intense. It was
Very
like
intense.
you couldn't not follow him.
He had-
He was like so intense.
He had cataracts in his eyes too. He was this bearded dude with, the headdress, and he was like the custodian of the
He was like
Buddhist
a
shrine.
sprightly old man. He had a lot of energy.
Come. And I don't think he had shoes. I
No,
think
he
was
didn't.
barefoot with this like trimmed kind of beard and the headdress thing, and it was like with his cloudy blue cataract eyes, like come to the elephant broken cave.
It was like a very important message he
showing
had to
us
share.
this cave, like on this mud path that I had to go down, or we went down, and there were no carvings or anything.
Well, that was so
There
funny.
Like
He's
a hole.
like, he makes this big deal about it, and we get there, and obviously, since it's stolen, there's actually nothing to see. It's just a cave with like a platform with nothing on it. He's like, it's stolen.
Yeah. So, what platform?
There was like a platform sticking out where like the statue was supposed to be, but it had been stolen.
Oh yeah, on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe there was nothing there.
Yeah, he could have just
Ever.
made it all up.
Maybe
for all
there
we
was
know.
just totally a hole in a wall.
And of course, of course, since he gives us this little tour, we have to give him a little tip. So, like for all we know, he made the whole.
He
thing.
didn't ask for one though.
No,
He
but
was-
you could kind of read between the lines.
But I went in there, and these other dudes, I think they were Japanese tourists, were kind of like interested, following us, and like going in. And I went in first, and he's like, goes back far, and there's no lights or anything. It's just this cave with no lights, no shrines, nothing, and it's all not very easy to walk. It gets pretty narrow, kind of spooky. Of course, there's bats, these big flying rat things
Oh
that
my
were like.
God, I'm so glad
I went all the way to the back, and there's all these bats in the ceiling. I'm like, wow, that looks like little rats hanging on the ceiling. I wonder, they don't look rabid, but what do I know? And they were fluttering around, and they're brushing up against me. I could feel their hairy body kind of going against like my ear and the back of my head. And I was like, okay, I made it to the back, turning around. I used the flashlight on my phone and squeezed out, let the Japanese tourists go to the back and see for themselves. And we went back to the Buddhist shrine where we first met the guy who was like, elephant broken. And I was like, yeah, elephant broken. Yeah. So he was a fun, spry little guy. Like, yeah. So we gave him a few bucks. We're like, okay, that was a pretty good show for getting maybe risking rabies.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, fun.
Whether it was made up or not, I sure liked his personality and
If I
his
did-
spunk.
If I did get rabies,
Yeah.
I could like say that it was a sign of the Buddha or something.
Oh, I
Or
don't
like,
know.
like a spirit possession.
Oh my gosh. I
Yeah,
don't
because it was
know.
on sacred grounds.
Sacred grounds.
Yeah. Anyway, that was the end of our tour. Then we went back, and we were of course asking our tour guide. This is the same tour guide who took us to get our visa renewed. That's how we met the guy, because we asked our hotel, can you hire a reputable taxi driver who's not going to rip us off to take us to the visa office out of town early in the morning.
At 5:30 in the morning.
5:30 in the morning. And he's like, yeah, okay. So we got the guy's WhatsApp info, and we texted him later after we got our visa renewed. And we asked, because he has these laminated sheets of tours in the back of his car that we saw when we went to get our visa renewed. And we looked at one, and we're like, yeah, okay, might as well get out of a boot. This
he's a
guy's
nice
and he was
kid.
volunteering all this information about local Balinese culture. And I was like, okay, I want more of this.
Yeah.
I need to interact more with locals. And this is a young, energetic, good-natured guy. Could not stop smiling.
Yeah.
So we went on this
smile.
tour, and when we finished the elephant cave, he was telling us more about stuff, and he showed us his monster.
Oh, yeah. So we have...
Explain the monsters.
Well, we have the day of silence coming up, Nyepi Day, and I think it's the day before Nyepi. There's this big celebration called, I don't know how you say it, it's like OGOH, Oga Oga or something like this, celebration. And what they do is they parade these huge monsters through the streets. And these monsters are like, we're talking... How big are these things? Like it's like maybe a 1 to 2 story building, like pretty tall.
30 feet tall?
Yeah, they're big and they're made out of, I guess, paper mache. Maybe there's
bamboo.
bamboo construction underneath and then like newspaper and glue.
So they spend weeks
Oh,
building
weeks if not months
and
even.
they're fully covered or like colored, and they have
painted. There's hair put on
got,
them.
Like real clothing that they put on, like fabrics, like sarongs
Yeah.
and stuff.
And then what happens?
Incredibly detailed. It looks like a big action figure.
Yeah, it does.
Like it's that well done.
And so each village or neighborhood, the kids, the young people in that area will come together and make their monster. And then on the day before Nyepi, they'll bring them out into the streets and they'll bring them to, go walk down the streets with them. And then each time they get to what is it, a fork in the road or like a T, then they have to turn these monsters 3 times counterclockwise. And so what they're doing is scaring away the evil spirits or any bad energy that's in the air. It's all being pulled into these monsters. And then also along with this, they are also competing. So which village, which town has the best monster, who's going to win? So there's also this game that's happening. And then he said, and I didn't know this, but he said after this whole event happens, then they take the monsters that now have all this bad energy absorbed in them and they bring them to the burial sites or like the cemeteries, and then they burn them. So I did not know that. So this is going to be happening next week. And I'm really excited to see this whole thing. It's going to be all over the streets.
Yeah. So did we mention what Nyepi is?
I said the day of silence.
Day of silence. Yeah, the entire island, it goes into rest recharge mode. So the streets are blocked off. You can't go outside, and they turn off the internet, and I think maybe cell phone, like cellular coverage, and all planes are blocked to and from the island.
Yeah,
like everything shuts down. You're not supposed to talk.
You're not supposed to cook. You're supposed to prepare the food the day before so that on the day you can just eat what's already been prepared. So, you're not supposed to talk or do anything really.
The point is to let the island rest and cleanse itself so its energy can rebalance. Mm-hmm. And it's like letting your field be fallow for a while so it can recharge.
Yeah, and you're supposed to reflect on your year and your life and such. But we were talking to... the women here who are serving us breakfast, and they're all coming into work that morning. And so apparently they don't totally follow these rules. So as long as you're like behind your little compound, then apparently not everybody's actually following the rules.
They had to come in early because the streets are going to be closed.
They have to get here before 6 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, because then after that, there'll be actual, I think, police out on the streets or some sort of enforcement.
Yeah, so it starts at 6 a.m. It's not like it starts at midnight.
Yeah.
It's like sunrise roughly the next day. So Nyepi is the day of silence, and then Oga Oga is the day before, where they're parading around these giant paper mache monsters. And they carry them on big stands and like teams of men will carry these big poles and will be running around. They look giant. I wanted to feel how heavy they look heavy, like they're part of a building or something.
Oh, they're big.
But it's paper mache.
And then tonight we were walking around. And so actually we've been here for almost a month now. And this whole month we've been seeing these big monster creatures being built all over town. So we'll walk to different areas and we'll see a new monster or a part of a monster. Maybe there's like a monster body, but its head hasn't been attached yet. So anyways, tonight we were going for a little walk, and just down the way across the park, there's two monsters being made. And one of them was this huge red woman was like a monster woman, and she has these huge breasts, and then she has like this vagina with teeth in it. And there's blood coming on her body. Her nails are like, 8 inches long. I mean, she's gruesome looking.
Oh, so she's showing her boobs and her genitals.
Yeah.
The teeth coming out of her genitals. And of course, she's got open sores. And I don't know
Like
what they used for
hideous.
the hair was covering her entire head. So it looks like real hair. I don't know if they used animal hair.
Well, and I asked our guide, I asked him, I said, like, well, what do what is the hair from? But he didn't, I don't know if he just didn't understand me or he didn't actually know himself what it was from.
Yeah.
So.
But so that's what I was saying earlier. Like, they're pretty flexible. They're not that, like, they have tons of ceremonies and rituals, but they're not, like, so dogmatic that, certain things are banned.
Yeah, like you can't show the breasts or something.
You can't show the breasts. And, like, here we have, like, a vagina mouth.
Like with
teeth.
It's like monster teeth.
I'm looking at the photo I took, and it looks scary.
Oh, it's so scary.
If I were an evil spirit, I'd be scared of this, too.
Yeah.
And, so his was, he said, my monster is called the King of Pigs, the Pig King. And it's like a human with a giant pig head with tusks and hair.
It's really scary looking.
Freaky. It's a really detailed face. And so he showed it to us. That was after we went to the big funeral compound.
Yeah.
But his was cool. Yeah, and go ahead.
And then the other thing we were talking to him about was, okay, so we were talking about the monster celebration festival, whatever, coming up soon. But then also we were mentioning that we had actually gone to see some of these dances. So we went to go see the monkey, that's the one that has the monkey chant, which you probably heard about. Like, was it Ketchuk dance?
Yeah.
And Ketchuk dance, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And
what is it?
Keith is looking for a picture here.
Yeah.
Hold on. I don't know what he's doing here.
No, I'm trying to. I thought I took a picture. Yeah. Ketchuk is the name of it.
So, yeah, there it is. Okay. So, and then we said, so we were telling him about this dance, and then we were asking him about the end of the dance. There was a second dance, which was a trance dance, and it was done with this dancer who is wearing a horse head. Not a real horse head, but it's like, I don't know if it's a paper mache horse head. And so we were asking him about this. We were like, how was the guy dancing? Because what he does is there's all these, so what was the first thing that happened in this dance?
The trance part or the monkey dance?
The trance part.
Well, we should set the stage.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Let's backtrack.
This was in a big temple, and in front of we had to go up these big stairs, with all these sculptures and reliefs, and like one of the main shrine when you get to the top of the temple was all these deities with sharp teeth surrounded by skulls and holding babies, like they're eating the babies. So super freaky. Then we went to the main dance area, and they had all these lights that looked like, back in the day, I'm sure there were candles, but I don't know what they were. But they illuminated all the cool Hindu temple architecture. And first they had a big dance where all these men were saying "kachak, kachak, kachak" and waving their fingers and gathering around. They were supposed to be the monkey army in this story about two kings with their monkey armies, and I don't really remember the details, but it was an epic story about monkey armies and kings and princesses and such.
Yeah, and what's amazing is that there are no instruments in this dance. It's actually just the voices, and so they do different sounds with their voices, and like at different levels and different intervals, and it makes this amazing soundscape for the whole dance. And there must have been maybe 100 men who were, participating in this.
Part of the story was about a giant that fights all these monkeys, and this guy comes out who's decked out like a dramatized warrior, and he kills thousands of these monkeys. And the monkey armies overwhelm him. the giant, and he becomes a hero. And let's see, some of the details are a bit foggy, but
there's a lot of different characters.
So trance-like. There's so many characters, and they have the women too, doing their. How would you describe them? They're wearing like really tight clothing, with headdresses and everything, with their elbows sticking out. With
doing very
their fingers making like OK symbols.
Yeah.
You know, and exaggerated movements, and grinning with their eyes looking in the total opposite direction of where their head is pointed.
Yeah.
And lots of
the hands movements and the finger movements are very particular.
So this is really trance-inducing because it's all a cappella with like 100 people making monkey noises and just and after about an hour of this, they clear out, and a local priest comes out. He's dressed in white, holy colors, and he starts a big bonfire of coconut husks. So there's this giant glowing pile of flaming embers, like charcoal almost, just glowing, and he sanctifies it with some holy water that he puts on it.
He actually comes out twice. He comes out at the beginning of the whole monkey dance. So before there's any dancing, there was actually like a priest there with the holy water. And I don't know if he was saying prayers or what exactly he was doing, but you got the sense that it was a ritual of sorts, even though there were tourists there watching the whole thing. Yeah. And then after the monkey dance, he comes out again and does what Keith was saying.
So then this guy comes out with like a hula hoop around him, like a metal hula hoop with
around his waist.
Around his waist, and a horse head on the front of the hula hoop. And it's attached to his clothing. So it's known as like a fire horse dance. And this guy goes into a trance, and he's just speaking gibberish. And according to our tour guide, who was talking to us later about all this, he said, he trains for this. And he trains for this? Does he have a dream or something, and then he decides one day that this is going to be his job or something? He's like, no, people choose if they want to do this, but they have to undergo a certain process to like prepare. And he's like, otherwise they'll get hurt if they don't do it. But he's like, in our culture, and like he's like, I believe this. They make themselves open to a spirit, to a god, and that inhabits their body and that protects them from the fire. And so this guy who enters a trance with the horse thing on his body, he starts running around and kicking this giant pile of coconut husk embers, and you could feel the heat of it. It's really hot.
In the beginning, it's all on fire. It's like a little bonfire, and he basically just jumps right into the middle of it almost.
Yep, runs right into it.
Yeah,
and he's kicking it and rolling around in it, and he's almost hitting the audience with all these embers that are coming out of this giant pile.
And there's like kids in the front audience. Yeah, it was a little bit like it was a little scary.
To be honest, I was almost hoping that people would get hurt in the audience, just so that I could feel like it wasn't just put on for the tourists. It's more like, no, if you're gonna see something this serious, like, it's not sanitized for you, dude.
This is the real deal.
This is the real deal. He's in a trance state and doing dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
And if you don't like that, don't sit in the front row. Because this is serious. But because no one got hurt.
No one got hurt, yeah. And he would go into this big pile and like pick up a big scoop of it with his hands and throw it in the air, and then his horse would go back out, and he'd kind of like wander around, and then you could kind of tell he was in this trance, and then he'd come back and he'd kick it with his feet.
He was yelling and muttering the whole time too.
So he looked like this horse that was like running in and out, and and you see, and then at times he'd even pick up a big ember coal coconut host chunk of it, and he'd put it up to his mouth, and I don't even know if he was licking it or what.
No, he put it in his mouth and he was spitting it out over and over and over again.
So I don't know how long this lasted, but I was definitely entranced and just kind of like, whoa, like I had my attention. And there was a part of me that was questioning, like, is this real? Is he really in a trance? Like, or is there some sort of trick that he's doing that we don't know about? But when we asked our tour guide, he was like, no, it's real. Like, he trains for it, but it is actually real. Like, if somebody else did it, they would get hurt, you know?
So at the end of this dance, the priest came out and gave him some holy water,
and the guy just collapses to the
he
ground.
just sits, he's sitting with his legs spread out, kind of sitting upright in a stupor.
In a stupor.
And he's in a total stupor, covered in soot at the edge of the audience, not in any like planned location where people can see him. He's just kind of just stupefied. And
his hands and his feet, he has bare feet, and his hands and feet are totally covered in black, like soot.
Soot, yeah. So then they inform us, they're like, yeah, okay, the dance is all over. You can clear out now. And the guy just stayed there at the edge of the crowd in a stupor. And I got the impression that he was supposed to just like cool off for a bit while he is coming back to out of his trance, and just to leave him alone. But all these tourists, as they were leaving, were like
giving him tips,
giving him money, just be like putting it like between his legs on the ground, just in front of him. Here's a few bucks. Here's a few. And
everybody
all these
was
people,
just like, whoa.
Like, whoa. He didn't ask for it. He didn't even like say thank you or anything. He was just staring off into space as people plopped down money in front of him. He was like, duh. After 15 or 20 minutes and most people were gone, he was kind of like, eh. And I thought maybe we should give him a couple bucks for eating flaming embers.
Oh my gosh.
And, but he left before. He didn't even like look around. He just took the money. And was like, and kind of
wandered back up.
Kind of wandered back up the stairs to the temple grounds that we didn't have access to. But yeah, and so I asked the tour guide about what's called a kris, which is a type of dagger or sword that they have here, like a family heirloom that's sanctified and unique to each family or to each person, and depends on the kris. This isn't just for Bali; it's for like Java and the rest of the islands. But I said, "Do you have one?" And he was like, "Yeah, I got one from my parents, and it's like my family kris." And I was like, "Are there kris rituals?" He's like, "Yeah, like the fire ritual, the fire dance. There's a kris dance too." And I said, "Well, what do they do?" And he's like, "Well, they stab themselves over and over in a trance." I'm like, really? And he's like, "Yeah, they go into a trance and they get their kris and they just stab themselves and they're totally fine."
And no blood.
And no blood or anything. And I was like, really? Like, so can anyone do that, or is it just like certain people? And he said, well, anyone can, but then they'll go to the hospital, or they'll die. Like, but you have to be trained to go into a trance state and allow their local gods to enter your body so that you'll be immune to all the stabbing. Mm-hmm. So he said that there were places to go see this, but I haven't seen that advertised anywhere.
Well, I saw today, I was looking a little bit, and I think there's one coming up sometime around Nyepi. There's something coming up, so we need to talk to him and see if there's any way we can see this.
I feel
Do I want to see it?
So weird about paying someone to stab themselves. But hey, if they're professionals.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening, and it's just, so this is coming up. Anything else about the kris? Before we move on?
I was just going to say, I asked him we asked him what he did. What does his family do? Any dancing or anything like that? Right. And he said, he's like, my mom does the traditional dancing and she still does it. And I was trained as a traditional dancer. People usually choose that kind of thing when they're in elementary school, start training. And I'm a dancer, a traditional dancer, but I basically kind of stopped doing it so we could focus on hospitality. And that's how I learned English too. I was like, so you speak 3 languages, right? Balinese, Indonesian, English? And he's like, how'd you know that? I said, well, you're Balinese and everyone in Indonesia is supposed to speak Indonesia, the lingua franca of the country. And if you're speaking English to us right now, then that's 3. And he's like, yeah, okay. Well, I learned when I went to study for how to be enter the hospitality sector, and
Which he said he didn't even do till after high school.
yeah, he learned English after high school, and yeah, so he's a quick learner.
Yeah.
There's a lot of English speakers that we've run into.
Oh, so many.
Yeah. So he doesn't really do the dance so much anymore, but he does. He prays twice a day, once in the morning and once at lunch, and gives offerings, bits of rice from his meals to his family temple in his home, and he's follows all the local traditions, but he's out working his hustle.
Yeah, it was interesting talking to him because he kept saying like, oh, well, in my culture, our gods, with a plural S, or like the god, or he would talk about like, I don't know, the god of this plant, or this different god of the sky, or I don't remember exactly.
He was pretty diplomatic about it, though. He wasn't like, yeah, the god, and you're wrong if you disagree.
No, he was just saying in my culture. But it was interesting talking to him because in the West, usually if we talk about God, it's like a one God, not all the time, but more so. Whereas here, it was very much like, no, like there's different gods, and like your body can be inhabited by a god, or that monster that we make can be inhabited. So, which is a very different way of seeing the world. It's such a different way.
These aren't abstract gods either. These are like gods and spirits that they interact with that are like the weather, like the volcano, like different aspects of nature and the island and the plants and animals. And
it's not a metaphor to them.
It's like a living island with living spirits that they can interact with through various rituals and everything. So, yeah, very lively place.
Very lively. And I was doing some more reading on other rituals coming up, and apparently there's another one I cannot remember the name right now, but it's a huge purification ritual happening in the next few days, and this happens before Nyepi. And it's to purify before the day of silence. And basically, they said most Balinese people will take part in this. And basically, they will all go out to water, so either to the ocean or to a nearby lake, and they'll be like walking in a procession with fruits and umbrellas and music. And there'll be probably thousands of people doing this. So we're going to see if we can get him to show us where we can go see this.
Yeah, he said we could participate
in it. Yeah.
So a second purification ceremony. Cool. He seems so inviting too. I mean, like he's like, yeah, you can do it. There's nothing blasphemous about an outsider participating in it. He's just like, yeah, this is what we do, and you can do it too.
You can join, right?
It's very cool. Yeah, so chill. I noticed that even the rats here are chill.
I know.
I saw a rat in the Antonio Blanco Renaissance Museum. There's like a rat in his studio. And
then we saw a rat at the Rice Terrace.
And a rat there. I think I've seen 3 rats. And they're not running that fast, and they don't look that scumpy.
They don't look like New York rats. Like
they've got gray tails, gray ears.
They're kind of cute.
And they're kind of cute, and they look pretty clean. They've got a nice sheen with like a kind of a golden speckle.
They're chill Bali rats.
So they're really chill. They're like
island rats.
Island rats. But there's a lot of venomous snakes here that probably eat the rats. So I wonder if there's, I don't know, fewer rats than there would otherwise be, and maybe the surviving rats are smarter and cuter and more like monkeys than like traditional sewer rats.
Who knows? Yeah, they did not seem like sewer rats, that's for sure.
Yeah, they were adorable.
Thank goodness we haven't seen any snakes yet. We've definitely been walking around even at nighttime, and I do get scared because I know there's a lot of snakes.
My fear of toilet snakes has diminished.
Yeah, I still close the toilet.
Still kind of there, dude. It's still kind of there. Yeah. Got anything else?
I think that might be about it. So tomorrow we're heading off on another adventure, and we're actually going to go find maybe a Chris.
Maybe a Chris. I asked the guy for a Chris. I said, okay, he was like, well, you can go anywhere and get a Chris. It's like buying a steak knife or something. There's a regular Chris, and then there's a spiritual Chris, which is a little harder. And I was like, well, I need a spiritual Chris. That sounds cool as hell. Like a real sanctified Balinese dagger made by a priest or whoever traditional craftsman, sanctified by a priest.
Not
I
a
guess.
mass-produced one.
Not a mass-produced lame Chris, but like a real. That's kind of the only souvenir I could imagine actually getting excited about. I guess a Chris is it bonds with you, like you bond, like you soul bond with a dragon, you know, or maybe like a cowboy bonds with his horse. Yeah, or like in Full Metal Jacket, how the soldiers have to sleep with their guns, you know, and give them like names and stuff.
So it's very personal.
Yeah, it's very personal.
And you can pass it down through the generations.
Yeah, you're supposed to sleep with it, I think, under your pillow and for a while. And if you have bad dreams, then that Chris is not for you. It means it's meant for someone else. So
I wonder if they name theirs.
I don't know. We're gonna find out a lot about Chris.
Yeah, Chris's tomorrow.
Tomorrow when I go look for him. If he takes me to some market with a bunch of sleazebags selling
setting our
mass,
expectations low.
I'm just preparing for the worst. I'm mad. And he was describing the ceremony for a spiritual Chris yesterday, describing how cool it was, and I was like, cool, I want that. But he might, I don't know.
Just take you to the art market.
Take me to a bunch of lamos selling crap to
Mass-produced.
tourists. We'll see.
We'll see. We could be pleasantly surprised, though. Who knows?
We'll see.
We'll see what happens.
All right. We'll have a Chris story next time.
Update, yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. This has been Wednesday, March 15th, 2023 in Ubud, Bali, Indonesia. This is us signing off.
Until next time, goodbye.
Bye-bye.